Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network, the number one network in the United States of America, and also Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America. Thanks for following Big C Sports. Also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, even Berlin, where they booed Ivanka Trump, Big C. They were booing her, but they're cheering Big C Sports. Also, my good old boys from Canada, you know I love you so much. I'm not even going to try to sing your national anthem today, but there's no one I love more than them good old boys down south in the land of the free, in the home of the brave, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
It's a beautiful day down in the south, but it's also a sad day down here in the south.
Oh, yeah?
We had Dale Earnhardt Jr. announce his retirement from Nascar at the end of the 2017 season.
No.
And, he's one of the most iconic and popular drivers in the sports history, Charlton.
Yeah.
You think about it, the son of the late Dale Earnhardt, who lost his life tragically in a race, but his son was such an iconic figure in racing, that Mountain Dew, car around the track, number 88, Charlton, and so many beloved fans down here.
Oh, yeah.
When you think about sports, okay, in every sport, athletes retire.
Yeah.
But the sports are bigger than the athletes, Charlton. When we look at it, Jordan retired, Kareem retired, Barry Bonds retired, Walter Payton retired, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, they retired.
Yeah.
And the game continued.
Yeah.
So when you look at it in NASCAR just recently, Jeff Gordon retired. Tony Stewart retired. So many great iconic figures in the sport league, but there's so many young guns that are coming on, but you don't forget about those who paved the track for those who are out there now seeking stardom, Charlton.
When I was a little boy growing up, I remember a lot of these good old boys driving. A.J. Foyt, Richard Petty, and speaking of driving, I want to say this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And of course, Big C, I still recall back in the day, they had a Big Daddy Don Garlett, and these guys raced. Dan Pastorini, I believe, he was also a race car driver. He played.
He was a drag.
Yeah.
He drove the tracks as a rail.
Yeah. So these good old boys, it takes a lot of stamina. A lot of guys think they can get in their souped up car. I see you go about 85 miles per hour in the Escalade, getting off the highway sometimes. But when you're in these cars, man, they're pulling so many G-forces. Big C, these guys are exhausted after they finish their races. Your thoughts?
Well, you figure running 200 miles an hour, Charlton, for in excess of 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stress on the upper body, holding that steering wheel, Charlton, for hours. And you got to understand, these cars don't have air conditioning in them.
Yeah.
Okay, we're so used to getting in our cars, sitting there, climate control. But you're inside one of these NASCAR cars, Charlton, that's fully enclosed.
Yeah.
And that car may reach 125, 130 degrees up inside that car.
Yeah.
While you're running around the track, staying hydrated is a very difficult thing for these drivers. A lot of them also wear the G-suits, protect their organs and everything.
Yeah.
But, these drivers are so competitive, Charlton, when you think about running bumper to bumper. Now, I've seen you drive, scared the hell out of me. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
I took Uber after,
I'm sorry, Big Z. That's California driving for you.
But, when you think about what these guys go through, the bumper to bumper, the scraping of tin, and every now and then they have accidents, Charlton.
Yeah.
And these accidents are so terrifying when you see them. I mean, they go up against the rail, they flip over. But, due to the safety restraints that they put into these cars, they think safety first for the drivers in NASCAR, and even in IndyCar racing, Charlton. There's been so many drivers' lives that have been saved because of the safety measures that the sports have put into place to protect their sport, their athletes. And so you're thankful for that, safety is first. Just like we see in the public car industry, how they've innovated safety over the years with the airbags, the restraint belts, the side airbags. You put people first other than just dollars, Charlton.
Yeah, and that's very true, Big C. And in fact, when you think about it, you're talking about these cars running 200 miles per hour. I think Corvette has I think it's called the Z06. I believe, built by GM. I believe it also goes over 200 miles per hour. I think even BMW has the M7. That's a 200 mile per hour car. Mercedes-Benz has a couple. I mean, what's up with guys that can run 200 miles per hour? We know it's not legal, but imagine these guys, what you just mentioned. They have body suits. They handle G-force suits. They have excellent driving, and they're usually going around an overlap at 200 miles per hour. Now you have car companies building cars that are somewhat street legal that even go that fast. I think that's a little bit reckless for companies to do that. But the good old boys, that's what you guys do from what I understand in the backwoods, Big C. Is that what it all started, Big C?
When you think about the moonshine industry, that's how it started. And really NASCAR was a stem of the moonshine industry.
Yeah, Smokey and the Bandit.
Get together running these back roads, Charlton.
Yeah.
Souped up vehicles to get the liquid to another spot, we'll see what the liquid was,
Yeah.
But, NASCAR stemmed from that, and it became an American sport, it's just as popular as any sport in America, Charlton. Actually, NASCAR has the largest sporting venues in America. When you think about, in Bristol, Tennessee, where, you can house 150,000 fans for a race, Charlton.
Yeah.
And you do that a couple times a year, and these NASCAR events are packed. They have loyal fans, Charlton. They're as loyal as any NBA, NFL fan there ever been.
Yeah.
They live for these events, and there's many of them throughout the season. So, NASCAR is an American jewel when you really look at the sport in totality, and you go back over the years of its legacy.
Yeah.
You think about the great Richard Petty, that was such an American icon figure for years, and we even mentioned Earnhardt's dad, before his passing.
Yeah.
And you look over the years, I mean, the first African-American, NASCAR driver was Willie T. Tibbs.
Wow.
Back in the 60s, and it was a long time before African-Americans even would break into the sport, and we even have African-American owners now.
Yeah.
Jordan has got involved. Brad Doherty, former North Carolina center, played 11 years
Oh, really?
Cavaliers in the NBA, is an owner of a team as well as a broadcaster with ESPN.
Yeah.
So it's a universal sport, Charles. A lot of Europeans have come over and gotten into the sport also. And when you think about even Hollywood has dabbed into NASCAR at great extent. Will Ferrell did a movie, Talladega Nights.
Oh, yeah.
Where he played this famous driver, Ricky Bobby. But that's how famous NASCAR is. He can even go up on the big screen and earn money, Charles.
Well, Big C, look at what's happening right now. One of the hottest movies out there with, big old boy that lifts a lot of weights, I guess. He eats a lot of spinach. Dwayne Johnson, known as The Rock. They have the Fast and the Furious. They have, I think, Tyrese in there and a lot of other good old boys in that show. Charlize Theron.
Diesel's in the movie also.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great cast of characters. Matter of fact, it won the box office this past weekend.
Yeah.
It's the 8th installment in that series, Jonathan. Just a marvelous cast of characters, and the storyline, you basically know what the storyline is that you're going to follow, but it's always intense.
Yeah.
What these guys can do. And everybody's fascinated with automobiles. We get fascinated with automobiles when we're a kid. We look at all the professional athletes, Jonathan, now, and most of them have a stable of cars. And that's the crown jewel is the particular cars that they'll have in their stable. And you spoke about the 200-mile-an-hour cars.
Yeah.
The Lamborghinis, the Bugattis, even Mercedes has, vehicles in those classes. The GT by Ford.
Yeah.
Multiple vehicles that would do in excess of 200,000 miles an hour, Jonathan. But we also talk safety. These athletes understand they know they have a vehicle that would do these, excessive speeds, but they also understand that they have a career.
Yeah.
That's more important than doing 200 miles an hour. And you talked about the Fast and Furious. Paul Walker, Paul Walker lost his life.
Yeah.
In a Porsche 400, one of those vehicles that will do 200 miles an hour, Jonathan. They lost control and crashed, and he lost his life tragically in an accident. But, we think about safety in all sports. And that's one thing you always teach. We know people that listen to the show have families.
Yeah.
And they teach safety to their children when they're teaching their children how to drive. To buckle up, to check your mirrors, to look left and right. Make sure all the apparatuses work along the dash.
Yeah.
These are the things that bring on safety and caution that's how we learn.
Yeah.
And so we pass it on, and that's what the race car industry does, Charlton. They make sure, and they crew. They all have a pit crew. They make sure that safety is the foremost thing. They check the tires with their hands. They go along, make sure there's nothing stuck in the tires, Charlton. They look at every aspect of the vehicle to make sure that driver is safe as possible.
Well, and you know, when you mention that, I know a lot of athletes, they love car collections. Who's that good old boy? Was it Jay Leno? He ran the Tonight Show after Johnny Carson.
Jay Leno still has Jay Leno Garage that he runs the Discovery Network. And Jay has always been a car enthusiast. And, you know, he has some very rare vehicles that he owns. Reggie Jackson, Charlton, when he used to play with the A's. Matter of fact, Reggie lost his collection a couple of years ago in a warehouse fire in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
We had over 100 vehicles stored, classic vintage cars, limited edition cars, Charlton.
Yeah.
Reggie Jackson had collected from his time with the Oakland A's when he was playing under Charlie O'Finley and they were winning those World Series. But, you know, there's so many players over the years. A friend of mine, Gary Payton out of Seattle, Gary had 68 vehicles.
Wow.
You know, he said, Gary, why so many? I always want to make sure something got gas in it. You know?
And I was amazed at how he parked them all in the garage, Big C, at the same time for one house. That's really impressive, them good old boys. Another good old boy that is into the race car driving also, Dave Letterman, one of the funniest guys in the history of television. He's also into race car driving. Big C, your thoughts?
Yeah, Dave has dove into the Indy Series, Charlton, and been very successful as a co-owner in that industry. But see, what race car driving does, Charlton, is allow the average person to be involved in a sport.
Yeah.
Even at the latter stages of your life. We are all such fans out there, and we get such a euphoria from watching and listening and paying attention to sports, regardless of what it is. But if you can get an involvement in the sport, you know, we see these athletes and we admire them. And so when you're a person of not great physical attributes, and you can be involved through ownership, participation, Charlton, it's very hard for people to get away from. You look at these guys.
So you're saying that guys like Rush Limbaugh might get into the race car driving? Is that what you're trying to say, Big? You don't have to be in the best shape. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know, Rush. You got to be able to pay attention. It's hard to focus on my guy, okay?
Yeah, I'm sure.
You might fall asleep at some point.
That's funny.
So, you know, when you look at these owners, Charlton, that invest in these sports organizations, guys are spending upwards of $2 billion now.
Wow.
To be the owner of a sports team, you know, basketball, NFL.
Yeah.
That's how important it is to be involved in sports. It's not like, you know, they're wasting money, but they just want to have that toy as an adult. And that's what that is. You know, they can afford it. You know, it's amazing when you see somebody pay $2 million for a sporting team.
Yeah.
And just astronomical numbers. But, you know, that's where it has gone to. Matter of fact, you know, there's some talk right now of the Ford Marlins being sold.
Really?
And Derek Jeter is part of that deal in trying to buy the Ford Marlins. The owner who bought the Marlins paid $180 million for that team, Charlton.
Yeah, chump change.
That team is for sale now for $1.5 billion.
Wow.
You think about it. That's not a bad profit, okay?
That's not a bad profit, Big C. In fact, imagine how much moonshine he could buy with $1.5 million, Big C. And you know, another thing I want to bring up too, in the world of athletics, in the world of race car driving, there was a study done by car companies, and it talks about all the guys, athletes drive sports cars, although drive the big Escalade or whatever big car. It's either like the Escalade or a sports car. They're saying one of the sexiest sounding cars to a woman. I don't know how computers figure this out, but they're saying the emissions from a Maserati, it actually arouses women, and so that's why they have that exotic sound, a lot like the Cadillac Escalade you have, Big C, when you put moonshine in the gas too. Go ahead, Big C. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I heard Bruno Mars said, you know, jump in the Cadillac, girl, let's put some miles on it. So the same thing we all understand. And speaking of putting miles on it, sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to that billion-dollar industry. With Big C Sports, you need athletic and events insurance. Tweet out to Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. We go through Ben and Mark. They've been around for half a century. We can insure most people in South America and also in Europe. So if you need coverage all over the world, tweet out to Big C Sports and iHeartRadio Network. We'll get you hooked up. Also, Big C, one thing I want to jump on in the world of the NFL, you know, we talk about things with mileage and getting better with age. You talk about, you know, Johnson starting to retire. He actually won at Bristol Motor Speedway on Monday, giving him his 11th time that he's had consecutive wins, his 11th time in his storied career. But speaking about his storied career, people think he's washed up in the NFL. Adrian Peterson just signed, I believe, a 2-year deal with the good old boys down south of New Orleans. Could you imagine him and Drew Brees in the backfield? People think they're washed up. I think he'll have at least a 1,000-yard season. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, Adrian Peterson didn't have the best of luck the last year in Minnesota, you know, with the knee injury and all that. But, you know, he's had his off-season to get healthy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and the Saints hope that they can get at least another year out of the tank on him.
Yeah.
Now, if he can come in and help revitalize his offense, because the Saints are in a rebuilding mode, Charlton.
Yeah.
They lost Cook, their top wide receiver in New England in a trade. They're revamping their offensive line. So Adrian Peterson, along with Drew Brees, can give you that leadership on that offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
That teams sorely miss. Now, Drew Brees really hasn't had a consistent running back for some time.
No.
You know, Ingram hasn't totally developed into the back that they thought he would. Otherwise, they would not have signed Peterson.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is a guy who's a workaholic. And a lot of times when you bring a player like that into an organization,
yeah,
it motivates people, Charlton. And when you think about the price of motivation in the NFL now, and you have such a short window for success,
yeah,
Adrian Peterson will bring that to the locker room. Now, he grew up there not too far from Louisiana because he's originally from Texas.
Yeah, he's in Texas.
So, you know, he's basically in that bed, you know, where he grew up. So a lot of fan base also would be there.
Yeah.
But having his lineage that he's had in NFL, Charlton, he has the third highest rushing average per game, 95.5 yards per game. So only, you know, with backs over 100 games, only two other backs,
yeah,
Brown and Barry Sanders, have a better average than what Adrian Peterson has with backs with over 100 games in their career. So he's had a great success. You know, he's the last back in the NFL to rush for over 2,000 yards, I believe, just 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And he did that, Charlton, after coming off a devastating knee injury. So Adrian Peterson has proven over time that he's a solid back in the NFL. When you give him the right offensive scheme, Charlton, he's going to ignite an offense.
Well, I think that's a very good point that you bring up also, Big C. And when we talk about him, there's, I think, only 26 running backs in the history of the league after they turn 31 that rush for 1,000 yards. That's pretty decent when you go 52 years of the NFL, Big C, but only 26 guys, I think, have rushed for over 1,000 yards in that span. I think he'll be one of the guys that can do the same thing. But another thing I want to touch on, too, he only got $7 million, Big C, over 2 years. As you mentioned...
Well, that $7 million. He's never played in his career with a quarterback like Drew Brees. So
yeah.
Adrian Peterson has always been the bulk of whatever offense. So defenses have been able to stack up. I mean, last year in Minnesota, he had Sam Bradford, who's been a skittish quarterback throughout his entire career, who never threatened anybody. But Drew Brees will threaten the secondary and a linebacking core. You cannot stack the line of scrimmage with a Drew Brees, and that's why Adrian Peterson was brought in.
Yeah.
Because you bring in a running back of his caliber, if he has anything left in the tank, and with Drew Brees' throwing ability, you know you can't sit there and cover one against Drew Brees.
Yeah.
And put those linebackers in tight. So with those linebackers having to back off the line of scrimmage with Drew Brees, now that swing pass comes open for Adrian Peterson. You got him one-on-one in open space.
Yeah.
With a linebacker, Charlton, the draw play becomes very effective in the New Orleans offense.
Yeah.
So it opens up a whole new gamut of things in New Orleans, and that's what Sean Payton, the head coach, recognized, is that I can bring this player in, and if I can get any bit of Adrian Peterson, I know I'm going to get the heart.
Yeah.
He knows that hasn't waned at all with Adrian Peterson. You know, if the legs can give him anything of what he's seen in Minnesota, this great running back who has never had an all-pro quarterback that he's played with. Think about this, Charlton. You're one of the greatest rushers of all time.
Yeah.
And when you look at those top three guys, Jim Brown, Barry Sanders, and Adrian Peterson, none of these guys ever played with an all-pro quarterback.
Isn't that amazing? That's amazing.
You think about, you know, underpaying African-American athletes.
Yeah.
And never having an all-pro quarterback. But these guys have been such great contributors to the NFL's storied, you know, life.
That's amazing that you bring that up about the great Jim Brown and also one of the best running backs that I think, maybe because I'm biased, but just seeing Eric Dickerson back in the day when he played for the Rams. And Eric Dickerson was a track guy, so you knew once he got the corner, he was off to the races, Big C. But he was one of the rare guys that stood about 6'3", over 230 pounds, that could run that fast. Most guys that run that fast are under 6 feet tall. I think Adrian Peterson's right around 6 feet tall, Big C. So he doesn't take the same punishment that an Eric Dickerson took. But also, once he gets in the opening, I think he's good for at least, 80-yard touchdown run if they won't catch him from behind. He hit 200 yards in the Raider defense just 2 years ago. And I know they talk about guys tearing up their knee, but what have we seen in the last several years, Big C? When athletes get knee surgery, they tend to come back even better than when they went out, Big C. Does that make any sense?
Well, Charlton, medical technology has advanced so much.
Yeah.
Over the past decade, the past 2 decades, that recovering from surgery is nothing compared to what it used to be. It used to be they had to open a knee.
Yeah.
They had to fling a knee out to operate on a knee. Now, Charlton, it's all done microscopically, even with cadaver transplant.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as it once was, Charlton, because that knee is new all over again. So when you look at what a running back can do now compared to what a running back did, Gale Sears, if he was playing in today's era, even with the devastating knee injury he had, Charlton, he would have been able to come back and play.
Yeah.
Based on medical technology, but it has changed. Earl Campbell, when you think about Earl Campbell during his career, he never had an all-pro quarterback that he played with.
Yeah.
He had guys that were playing at the end of their career, and you spoke about the great Eric Dickerson.
Yeah.
Never had one, Charlton. So when you think about these all-pro Hall of Fame running backs that had to struggle throughout their careers, and teams could stack their defense against them, it just showed you how great these running backs were, Charlton.
Yeah. How
enduring they were and how talented they were. And no one will ever give them credit for that. We think about the quarterbacks that threw for all these yards, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
That set the records, Dan Marino. But when you look back at those running backs that played with those quarterbacks, Brett Favre never had an all-pro running back.
Wow.
Okay? Never had one. Never had one. Dan Marino didn't have one. Peyton Manning got lucky and had Ezra James early in his career that stabilized their offense.
Yeah.
But these guys, Charlton, were just workhorses, and these quarterbacks got all the acclaim. Think about if those running backs had gotten the acclaim that those quarterbacks did, Charlton, and be even equally, if not more successful in what they did in their job, consistently on the ground, gaining the yards that they did, keeping their teams, in playoff contention.
When you bring that point up, Big C, I didn't even think about the fact that Jim Brown, back in the day, didn't have an all-pro quarterback throwing the ball to take the pressure off the running game. So everybody was stacking the run. And if you look at one of the top running backs in today's game, let's say Ezekiel Elliott for the Dallas Cowboys out of Ohio State, he and Dak Prescott, it's a 1-2 punch combination. As long as Dallas keeps their offense spread, then it's going to be hard to game plan against them. And also back in the day, I think of a guy like Franco Harris, another guy that's about 6'2", about 230 pounds. He had an all-pro quarterback in Terry Bradshaw, but Franco was not fast and shifty like Eric Dickerson. And you think about the running style of an Adrian Peterson. He's strong like Franco Harris, but he's shifty and fast like Eric Dickerson. And I think he even has a little bit of that moonshine stuff that they put in him that make people miss, like Barry Sanders. Could you imagine him coming off the corner? If his knee is strung again, he can give it a hip and take it away. He can also run you over. Big C, I think he's worth a lot more than the money they're giving him. Just your thoughts on that again.
Well, Charlton, being in the latter part of his career, you take the money that's available.
Yeah.
We know that running backs in the NFL, African-American running backs, are expendable. They're not going to spend a lot of money on them. And so that's what happens in today's market, is that you devalue the running back and you give a lot of money to the quarterback.
Yeah.
I think about, one of the top 2-3 running backs of all time, the Sweetness, Walter Payton.
Oh, yeah.
Walter Payton, when he retired, Charlton, never had an all-pro quarterback.
Really?
But he left the game with over 16,000 yards rushing. So when you think about what these running backs had to endure, that teams could line up against them.
Yeah.
Adrian Peterson here in the latter part of his career would not have to face that, Charlton, because he's playing with an all-pro quarterback in Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Drew Brees is going to hit you for 300 yards every game.
Oh, yeah.
Easily.
Easily.
As a defense, you just chalk that up.
Yeah.
The defensive coordinator, okay, We're going to start at 300
Yeah.
if we cannot
Yeah.
any more than that. That's what Drew Brees is. I mean, everybody's in fear of this guy. You know, it's just uncanny with what he can do
Yeah.
with a football. We hear about all these other quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Every year, this guy is great. This guy is great. Go back and look. Drew Brees only threw for 5,000 yards, okay? And everybody else was a damn better quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay? But he only threw for 5,000 yards last year. So I'm trying to find out how many quarterbacks in the NFL that were better than Drew Brees. You know, it's almost like Drew Brees, in comparison, Jonathan, it's like LeBron James. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know LeBron James is the greatest player in basketball, okay?
Yeah.
Other players get the MVP.
Yeah.
Right? He's the greatest player in basketball. Drew Brees, for the last several years, has been the greatest quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
But others get the accolades. Because I don't know what Drew Brees has ever thrown since he's been in New Orleans for less than 4,000 yards, Sean.
No, that guy knows how to throw the ball. And another point you bring up too, Big C, you know, you don't see a lot of 1,000-yard rushers behind him, but Drew Brees is not. I don't think he's even 6 feet tall, Big C.
He's 5'10", Charles.
Yeah,
Drew Brees is 5'10".
And that good old boy, when he starts sipping on that moonshine, what they call the Who Dat State down in New Orleans, Big C. Imagine when Adrian Peterson gets some of that Who Dat juice when he's getting in the lineup too, Big C. I think it's going to really help the offense for the Saints this year. I think they're still in money. Hopefully he has an incentive-laden contract, because now the new 30, with the way he works out, his body's almost like a 28-year-old running back. He's not like the guys that come into practice 30 pounds over shape, Big C. Do you think that's going to help him out too, Big C, in the long run?
It does, Jonathan. His physique has really prolonged his career. He's not an Eddie Lacy.
Yeah.
He's not a LeGarrette Blount. He's a very stealth running back, very chiseled.
Yeah.
You know, and he's taking care of his body, and that's what has allowed him, Jonathan, to come back from these multiple injuries that he had. You know, he doesn't sit back and feel, oh, sorry, woe me.
Yeah.
You know, he's out there, let me get to the next level that I need to get to.
Yeah.
And if all players in the NFL work that way, you know, you think about it, so many players take this game for granted.
Yeah.
And this game can be over on your next play.
Yeah.
But players such as Adrian Peterson, which have been the cornerstone of the history of the NFL, the workaholics. You know, we talked about Gary Rice yesterday in that great 49er organization.
Oh, yeah.
How hard a worker that he was. You know, Walter Payton was synonymous for his off-season workouts that players would try and give up on Walter after a week or so. Hey, Walt, you keep that.
Yeah.
You know, when you go back and you look at the players who have had success,
Yeah.
long-term success in any professional sports, Charlton, they have not been a sycophant to wanting to work out to make themselves and their bodies better.
Yeah.
They go out and they do that extra. You know, it's like a basketball player who will stay out after practice and shoot that 100 free throws, okay?
Yeah.
Once the rest of the team has gone in, to make sure he has his rhythm right. He's going to take that 200 jump shot to make sure he knows his spot on the floor.
Yeah.
People wonder why great athletes stay great. And you can't be a couch potato and be a great athlete.
Well, Big C, hold on, Big C. You just upset half the 40-year-olds out there that are buying those gym memberships because it's spring and summertime. You saying you can't eat and sit on the couch all day and look like Adrian Peterson? Is that what you're saying, Big C?
No, it's an enduring thing to have a body like that. I mean, you're talking about hours on a daily basis. You talked about Dwayne Johnson earlier, The Rock.
Yeah.
You know, being in the movie The Furious.
Yeah.
And everyone sees him on the tire commercials and other endorsements that he had.
Yeah.
He didn't get that body just by standing there, okay?
Do you think he was really holding up real tires though, Big C? Do you think that was CGI?
That's a problem. That's a problem.
Okay.
Even Dwayne, though, he's pulling us
Yeah. Dwayne needs to put a disclaimer on that commercial, because I saw some good old boys that tried to do that. Boy, they got like 3 tires, they passed out, Big C.
But you know, anything is about work. Even if you're out in the private sector, if you're in sales,
Yeah.
you know, you go out and you work at your craft daily to become good.
Yeah.
So everything equates to one another. It's not just sports, but you have to work at your craft. You think about actors. They work at their craft, you know, and I think about the ones that are on Broadway, Charlton,
Yeah.
who are doing it live, okay?
Yeah.
They work at their craft daily to make sure they get their lines, their spot on the floor correct.
Yeah.
And they're professionals, and they're concerned professionals. And life is not just athletics, about being a concerned professional.
Yeah.
You think about being a parent. Any mother, any dad out there, you work at your craft daily.
Yeah.
You be the best one that you can.
Yeah.
You make sure that your kids are provided for. You give them what they need. You make sure that they're following the plan that you have set up for them to be a success in life.
Yeah.
So even parents, and a lot of parents work harder than athletes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When you think about it, because that job that they have as a parent is a one-shot deal.
Yeah.
That they have one time to get it right. They can't fumble the ball and say, okay, just give it to me the next play. You can't fumble with a child.
Well, that's very true.
Make sure that child stays on the path, and that guidance and tutelage and that right passes that you give them, Charlton,
yeah,
will lead to success down the road.
Well, Big C, that's something else I want to bring up too, because we talk about parenting and how parents can help their kids. You know, if the kids listen, they can have a choice. Some kids don't listen. They might want to learn the hard way. But back around the NBA on our final segment today, I look at Steph Curry and I look at his father, Del Curry, and even his other brother that plays in the NBA, Big C. And I look, and I think about the mother, how she laid a great foundation because she was also an athlete. But the father, he brought his kids around him when he was back in the day, I think even up in Toronto. But I remember as a young boy seeing video, he was always around his dad. There are a lot of fathers who either read in front of their kids, or they'll let their kids come and see what they do for work, or they'll take them out and play catch with them. You know, sometimes just being involved. I look at what Curry did last night, and even more than what he did last night on the floor, scoring 37 points, and he was just awesome last night. But the way he composes himself and the way he talks to the interviewers, I think he had a conversation with Lewis Johnson, who does a lot of work with basketball and the Olympics and football. And he's just so calm. Even after having a great game, he wasn't grabbing his jersey saying, me, me, me. He wasn't holding his finger up in the air saying, I'm number one, I'm number one. It wasn't about I. He was just so calm. It was like they didn't even play a game, because he stays in that focus that you talk about athletes having to have. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's the consummate professional. You know, great athletes act like they've done it before.
Yeah, they've been there.
Because that's what they do.
Yeah.
You know, I recall Barry Sanders during his career. You think about a running back who has scored 100 touchdowns.
Wow.
Never spiked the football, Charlton. Never spiked the football in his professional career.
Yeah.
You think about that. The class of this individual to never spike a football. Why? Because he said that's what he was paid to do.
Yeah.
Was to score touchdowns. So he didn't have to have an elaborate celebration. He wanted to get the ball again and try to do it again.
Yeah.
So when you think about athletes like that who do not draw attention to themselves, and there's a rare few, Charlton,
Yeah.
that did that. You know, Kareem, NBA's all-time leading scorer.
Yeah.
He never celebrated. He didn't. I mean, he could dunk on anybody.
Yeah.
He shot the skyhook on everybody. You know?
Yeah.
So, but, you know, he didn't shoot the skyhook, turn around and say, you know.
Yeah.
He didn't do that. When he dunked on somebody, he didn't sit there and flex. He turned around, went back and played defense.
Yeah. You know,
this is what you do as a professional athlete. You know, we see guys now that hit home runs and they got to stand at home plate
and watch it
for 3 seconds
Yeah.
before they move.
Yeah.
Okay? So, Ricky Henderson never celebrated stealing over 1,000 bases, okay?
Yeah.
It was his job to steal a base. He just got up, dusted off, tried to take third.
Yeah.
He didn't care. You know,
Yeah.
He wanted you to catch him, not show you up. He
Yeah.
showed you up by taking the base. So when you go back and you look at the greatest of all time, Hank Aaron. Hank hit a home run, he just trotted. That
Yeah.
was it. Willie Mays just trotted.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have to stand there and admire what they did. They were happy to be able to do what they wanted to do, Charlton.
Yeah.
But now you get a guy hit a 3-point shot in the NBA, and you swear he just broke the scoring record. Okay?
Yeah, it broke the score record. Averaging 5 points a game. And I want to bring that point up because I like Damian Lillard. He's a great rapper. He's from Oakland, California. The O on his jersey stands for O for Oakland, not for the number 0. But he did say that they were going to win in 5 games or 6 games. And that's okay. Athletes got to talk. You got to be confident. And the fact that they got swept, Big C, sometimes Steph Curry, who could talk as much as anybody, he never goes out and makes predictions. He always says, well, we just want to focus on our game plan and get everybody involved and, make sure that we can find the open man and do the best we can to play defense. And that's what we do as a team. It's never about, I'm the 2-time MVP. I'm the guy that shot more three-point baskets than anybody in the history of the league. He never does that. And sometimes people say, is he genuine? Yeah, I think he is genuine. But that goes back to what you said earlier about his father was involved in his upbringing and he listened to his dad, okay? Sometimes kids don't do that, but he listened to his father. I'm sure sometimes he didn't want to. But that shows every father out there, be involved in our kids' lives, good or bad. If we're there, we'll leave a lasting impression on them, Big C. I want to touch on something before we close out tonight's program. A lot of great games in the NBA. Draymond had his 21 points. Thompson had 18. Durant had 10 as he came back and played last night. Tonight, some big action down in Southern California. If Staples Center is not rocking tonight, then Utah's going to go in there and sneak a win. And I hope that the Clippers can pull it off because I love seeing basketball in Los Angeles. It's just like seeing basketball in New York. You need to have it there. But your thoughts on the Clippers? Do they have enough moonshine in their tank to get a win tonight at Staples Center, Big C? Your thoughts?
John, this is the team that's they don't know how to get out of the first round. And if they ever got out of the first round, they're definitely not getting out of the second round. They're not going to beat Golden State, okay?
Yeah.
So you might as well just, accept what it is and get ready to disband this team. I think when Gobert came back for Utah, that sealed the fate.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, you're right.
And then Griffin went down with the foot injury.
Yeah.
They have an excuse to lose.
Yeah.
That's the point. They have an excuse to lose now. And I think they'll follow through with that excuse. This is a team that's looking not to win, not to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
So when you have a team that's not looking to go out there and dominate, Charlton, you don't have much hope for them.
I tell you what, Big C, that game's going to be tonight on TNT. Can't wait to see what Shaqtin' the Fools says about that. And also the great Charles Barkley and Kenny the Jet Smith and Ernie. They do a great job on TNT. Another game that may see the season come to an end for everybody who thinks he might be the MVP is Russell Westbrook. Their good old boys are playing down in Houston. I hear there have been extra orders of moonshine down there around Houston, Big C. That might be a game where they close it out tonight as well. Your thoughts?
Well, this is a team, Charlton, that has struggled. Westbrook has put up phenomenal numbers, but even in putting up those numbers, he's struggled.
Yeah.
I think he's pressing. He's trying to prove a point against James Harden. James Harden is just too good and solid of a player to try to outshine him. You're going to get your points with Westbrook, but Harden also is going to get his. And when you think about it, the Rockets have only led 56 minutes, Charlton, in this entire season.
Really?
OKC has led like 126.
Wow.
So they've dominated as far as minutes in the league. They just haven't won but one game. And when you think about it, this team is minus, I believe it's 58 points.
Yeah.
Plus Westbrook has been on the bench.
Yeah.
In these 4 games. So without him, and you got to rest him at some point, Charles.
Yeah.
When you think about the preseason, the regular season, that he did miss but one game in the regular season.
Yeah.
And now, he's played over 100 games this year, Charlton. So the body does wear out.
Yeah.
And so Donovan's trying to give him a little break, but even when you give him a break, there's no other guy on the floor for OKC that'll say, hey, I'll take the shots, because they've all gotten so used to sitting around and watching Westbrook is that they don't know how to create a flow in their offense.
Yeah, you're right about that, Big C. They do stand around and watch him, and I like watching him too because he is lightning in a bottle or moonshine, whatever them good old boys drink down there in Oklahoma City. And the final NBA playoff game tonight, Big C, that's going to be on the NBA channel. Oklahoma City and Houston's on TNT. Memphis at San Antonio. San Antonio, Kawhi Leonard, I thought he was like the MVP of the league just based on this last game, versus Memphis. But, he kind of ran out of battery at the end of it. Seemed like the Energizer Bunny, his battery ran down. Your thoughts on them having a chance to get up on Memphis tonight in San Antonio? That game's at 6 o'clock p.m. start on the NBA channel. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, if you look at Kawhi Leonard, Charlton, it's like looking at Michael Westbrook. Kawhi had 43 points.
Yeah.
The other night against Memphis, he had 16 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
He was also 7 for 9 from the 3.
Yeah.
The rest of the Spurs only hit 2 3-pointers during the game, 2 for 23.
Yeah.
So with Kawhi Leonard, this is Michael Westbrook. As he goes, the team is not going.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. The rest of the team is going to have to pick up their play and not rely so much on Kawhi Leonard to get it done. So San Antonio is a much better team. Popovich has been very disappointed. with his teams play. But Memphis has played hard. They're a solid organization, Charlton.
Yeah.
They played well. And this series is tied 2-2. I believe the winner of tonight's game, Charlton, will win the series. And, San Antonio loses. It's going to be a very disappointing season for them with the second best record in the NBA.
Well, that's always a big point to consider, Big C. Around the NBA, we're going to see some great basketball. Hopefully, I'm just going to pull for the Clippers because I want to see more California love when they play that song down at Staples Center. They play it. It sounds a little bit better than my version of it, Big C, but I hope Dr. Dre don't get mad at how I sang it, Big C. Also, in Major League Baseball on the West Coast, we have the Dodgers at the Giants, 7:15 pitch. And the A's are at the LA Angels. The good old boys, the Yankees, are at Boston. And that game already pitched off at 4:10 p.m. Big C, as we close out today's show, what are you looking forward to coming up this week? Go right ahead, sir.
Well, Charlton, we have the NFL draft on slate.
Yeah.
There's some marvelous young quarterbacks that's going to come out. Everybody's high on this Trubisky kid coming out of North Carolina. I like Mahomes coming out of Texas Tech, Charlton.
Yeah.
I also like Kaiser and Watson. I look at those three quarterbacks, and I believe they're going to be future stalwarts.
Oh, yeah.
In the NFL, Charlton, but, a guy who's only played one season doesn't, set lightning on fire, in a bottle in the NFL. The NFL is too complicated to take a quarterback who's only played 13 games and say he's going to be a franchise.
That's Mel Kiper for you, Big C.
Yeah, Mel Kiper said it, but he also said that about Jared Goff.
Yeah.
A guy who only won 14 games in 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay?
At Cal Berkeley.
When you look at the Kool-Aid that Kiper did, he's not drinking moonshine. He's drinking Kool-Aid.
Maybe you should introduce him to a cool taste of moonshine, Big C. It makes you more clairvoyant from what I understand.
Well, he's got to figure out whether he's drinking grape or red.
Yeah.
But, his selections have been kind of off. Matter of fact, maybe we need to go bring this monkey on our show. Give him a couple of some accuracy for the ESPN.
What do you tell your sports agent when the monkey's 80% accurate, you're only like 40% accurate, Big C? That's a tough line to sell.
Probably only about 30% accuracy.
Okay.
But he's way down, and we'll get a chance to see that come Thursday night.
Yeah.
I don't understand this pick. Well, you don't understand the pick because you're not an NFL person.
Yeah.
You're not a director playing personnel. You're not a GM. So they don't expect you to understand the pick because they're the experts and you're the guest.
And Big C, isn't that like the guys back in the day that would tell you how to beat Mike Tyson back in the day when he was knocking people out in the first round, and they'd never been in the ring. They just watched it on TV. That's not how you beat Mike Tyson. Don't you have to get in the ring with guys like Mike if you're going to tell the whole world what you got to do to beat these guys as we close out the final minute? Big C, go right ahead, sir.
It's really easy, and that's a perfect scenario when you talk about Mike Tyson. Everybody went in the ring with confidence because people don't think this is all it takes to beat Mike.
Yeah.
Don't get in the ring. Don't get in the ring. Because you go in there, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
I go back to George Foreman.
Yeah.
George Foreman, early in his career, before he ran into Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Was the most fearsome thing that you ever saw. I mean, he was a behemoth of a man, Charlton, looked like a linebacker.
Yeah.
And when he walked in the ring, he hit everything. If the referee got in the way, he got hit. He didn't care. And so there was no fear in his mind, but there was fear in everybody who faced him.
Yeah.
And after he knocked out Joe Frazier, everybody said the man would be invincible the rest of his life.
Didn't he knock Frazier down like 6 or 7 times, Big C, and they didn't stop the fight?
He put him down 6 times, Charlton. But see, Joe kept beating up. Joe stay down.
Yeah, Joe didn't understand.
Joe has that heart.
Yeah.
And I go back to when you talk about heart. Remember the movie Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
One of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah.
John Travolta, Samuel
Vin Rames. Uma Thurman.
Uma Thurman, Charlton. You look at the characters, but there was great lines in this movie by Marcellus, who was played by Vin Rames.
Yeah.
When you talk about heart and pride.
Yeah.
He talks about, he said, that thing you're going to feel ain't pride. It only hurts for a little bit.
Oh, yeah. That's funny, Big C. And speaking for a little bit, we'll be back on again tomorrow when we talk about the NFL draft every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network, the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We always tell you every program There's never any excuse for domestic violence. If you see any woman going through that garbage, just call 911 so she won't have to deal with it on her own. And as we always tell you on every program, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.